Hey there, welcome to RPG News. Today we'll be talking about a blight on this very amazing hobby. This blight is known as PGMS, or Permanent Gamemaster Syndrome. PGMS is a disease which affects 1 in 5 gamers. It cultivates when a player who constantly GMs is unable to separate themselves from when they're gaming and when they are not.
This is Thomas. He is patient zero in the epidemic of PGMS. PGMS is caused by one player in an RPG group continuously GMing, never being able to act as a player. This begins to spiral out of control to the point where all they want to do is GM. Then, it gets so bad that they can no longer live. We spoke to the foremost authority on the subject, Dr. Legitimate.
And how did you discover PGMS?
Well, I first found Thomas after he reached out to me. He had seen some of my prior research on video game syndrome and wondered if I could help him with his issue. Although he asked me to make a medicine check first, that was rather disconcerting, and I knew that I had the case immediately.
What are some of the symptoms of PGMS?
Well, the symptoms of permanent GM syndrome or Gamemaster syndrome for long term are rather wide and varied in their nature. Some of the symptoms less severe than others. The most common one, which we see amongst most of them, are, of course, carrying dice, copious amounts of it. They have an inability to let go of dice. They seem obsessed with it, believing in an integral rule that whatever result the dice would give them is an intrinsic law that they must obey. We've had several problems in severe cases where they would fail what they would call food checks or drink checks. They would starve for days on end, having failed their check. It was very sad. They also seemed to have a fixation on narrating in a third person everything, from using the bathroom, walking down a corridor, and in worst cases it can stretch out to other people's lives. They forget how to talk in a first person altogether, narrating simply everything that happens around them, constantly. It's a shame. Of course, there are some more severe ones as well. They tend to branch out sometimes in more severe cases. They will ask others to make checks at all times for anything, especially troublesome when they want to go shopping for anything. They think that everything can be negotiated with a check, or that medicine is debatable. Some of them are delusional because they believe so heavily in the dice. It really is a shame.
PGMS is quite controversial. How has this affected your career?
Well, it hasn't been easy. I've received multiple threats to my clinic and to my patients. Unfortunately, the medical world always tends to be a bit turbulent when new discoveries are made, such as my video game syndrome. And unfortunately, they have chosen rather to accept my research to defame me. I'm currently in the process of losing my medical license, although I look to appeal that effort in front of the trial at Nuremberg.
And how has Thomas's treatment been going?
Well, Thomas's treatment, like many other treatments for many mental diseases, has been a rather slow and rocky road. We have been slowly moving him on, having mock games, sort of simulations, where a game is not really occurring, but it is in his mind, as it always has been. We just restrict him from being able to act out upon the instincts and the urges that he feels related to his syndrome. We have slowly moved on. At first we had to have him gagged so that he could not verbally take control of the game, but thankfully we've moved far past that, and we're now in a section where we can even remove the handcuffs.
What actions should one take if they happen to notice upon the symptoms of PGMS?
Well, my advice for anyone who encounters someone with PGMS is to approach it carefully. It's a very delicate issue, it's a very sensitive mental matter. And if you want to know more about how to deal with PGMS, you can always purchase my book, The Dungeon Master's Guide, a comprehensive guide to handling your Game Master Syndrome. With this book and a down payment of $9.95 every week, you and your Game Master and group no longer have to suffer the tyranny of permanent GM syndrome.
We were able to interview Thomas before he started breaking down. Here are the few straight answers that we were able to receive.
When did you realise you had permanent Gamemaster syndrome?
I realised that I had PGMS when it really became apparent to me that I was just narrating everything. I had a need to roll dice all the time. I started GMing kind of for fun outside of the game. And also, I literally couldn't play video games anymore. I felt the need to try to control the game. I actually broke my computer screen by throwing a D20 at it.
And how does it affect your day-to-day life?
Well, it affects my daily life greatly. I can barely go out anymore. I used to be able to, but all the local shops don't serve me anymore because I constantly ask them to roll D20s. I've been arrested multiple times for trying to narrate a police chase. I'd gotten in the car with a policeman and was asking him to roll dice for when he was trying to catch a crook. I got arrested instead, and I spent a couple weeks in there until I got bailed out by Mr. Dr. Legitimate.
And how did you find out about Dr. Legitimate?
I found out about Dr. Legitimate when I read his first book that he did. It's about video gaming syndrome. It wasn't relevant to me at the time. Simple peasants have problems with that. But I thought that maybe he was the only one that would actually see it as a mental illness, as he saw video gaming syndrome as a mental illness. And I reached out to him. I mean, he replied almost immediately, like he had nothing else to do, so good on him.
And what are your feelings on PGMS not being considered a legitimate mental illness?
PGMS is. I'm working heavily with Dr. Legitimate to make sure that it is known that it is a mental illness. It's a serious problem. I literally can't function. I really can't. As she looks at me, she stares at me and pities me, thinks I'm nothing but an idiot. Oh, sorry. I'm good.
If you don't mind telling us, how did you lose friends to PGMS?
Can we just roll a check for that question, please?
No, we're going to continue with the interview.
Don't facilitate him. You gotta teach him.
No, come on, roll it. Oh, fuck. It's my best dice.
We were unable to continue the interview. His momentary lucidity had passed. We then followed up with his friends and family. His old roommate was willing to comment, just so long as his identity was not disclosed.
At first we thought he was just getting really into GMing. He started practicing, at least that's what he said. He started narrating everything around him. At first it was, made him better as a GM, but then it got really annoying.
Go and get some food.
He opens the fridge door and he checks on the inside, thinking about what he wants to eat, even though he's had like 5 chocolate bars today and he's not even sure how his void of a stomach can even eat anymore. He thinks maybe he should go on a diet.
Fuck off!
And then it started to get worse. He started asking us to roll dice all the time for everything. And, based on what the roll would happen, he'd make it happen no matter what it was without even realising it. It was horrible. He almost caused a car accident once.
He grabs the water glass. He attempts to drink it. Roll the dice.
What?
He attempts to drink it. Roll the dice. Roll the dice. He rolls a 1. He brings it up to his face, but then it spills everywhere.
Fuck, dude!
When it started to get really bad, I thought that maybe I'd try running a game, for once. It was going really well for a while, and he was having fun. He was being a bit bossy. He wasn't used to being a player. He was narrating a little bit too much, but it wasn't a problem. But then, I don't understand how, but he started jamming. I'm not sure how he did it. I magically moved. I'm not even sure how it happened. And that was that. He was jamming. He'd taken control of the entire game. But, he was actually jamming a lot better than I was, and we actually had a lot of fun, so I guess that's good.
In conclusion, PGMS is becoming an increasing issue in today's society, and the best way in which we can prevent such an affliction is to simply take turns when role-playing. Don't allow the same GM every single time. This is Kimberly, RPG News.